Welcome to another episode of Erik Wait Whiskey Studies, and in this video, gonna do a review of the Benriach 16-year-old Speyside single malt Scotch whiskey, and I'm using a glass. It's one of my favorite whiskey glasses. I got this actually at the Glasgow airport on my way home. I was recognized by a rep of Benriach, and we got to talking and tried a sample, and he gave me a glass. And I use this all the time. I like the glass because it has a shape that's kind of like the Glencairn, and yet it's bigger, gives you a better, say, exposure to the nose. And if you want to drop a nice, little chunk of ice in there, you can do that. So I really like this glass. However, the one problem is, due to the size, and it doesn't fill up as quickly and goes a lot wider, you can have a temptation to actually pour more than what you meant to into the glass because it isn't, as high. So, I visited Benriach Distillery, my fourth trip to Scotland in April 2024. In previous trips, I went as far south as Benriach and Annandale in the lowlands, went to Islay twice, the Isle of Arran, went to Campbelltown twice, went through the Springbank Whiskey School, went to the Highlands and Speyside twice, went as far north as Orkney, and on my fourth trip, I went over to the western side of Scotland and went to some of the Isles, including the Isle of Skye, Raasay, and the Isle of Mull, and then I made my way over into Speyside and visited a few distilleries there. So, when I went to Speyside, I visited Benriach Distillery. Wow. So, this is a really awesome whiskey. It's only 43%, and there's a lot of people that are going to roll their eyes at that, and I get it. There are some whiskeys that have a big punch of flavor and aromas, and in a hedonistic fashion. I really like those. There are some whiskeys that really show off the beauty of the spirit and the grain. Some that really perhaps show off the really having really great casks, really cask forward. Some, perhaps it's the peat character they really like. And then some whiskeys, I think, really show off the artwork or the masterful work in blending. And this is one of those whiskeys. I would say, in terms of Japanese whiskeys that I've liked, even if the spirit maybe came from Scotland, is they were masterfully blended. In a similar fashion, Benriach is very similar to that. So let me give you a little tour of my trip around Benriach Distillery and talk about the profile of this whiskey, and then we'll get into it. Benriach Distillery is located in Moray, Scotland in Speyside. The distillery was founded in 1898 by John Duff. It is currently owned by Brown-Forman. In 2013, they revamped the malting floor. They use a Porteous malt mill. They have a 5.8-ton stainless steel mash tun. They have 8 stainless steel washbacks with a 55-hour fermentation. And they use 2 wash stills and 2 spirit stills. The Benriach 16-year-old is aged for 16 years in ex-bourbon cask, sherry cask, and virgin oak. It is bottled at 43% alcohol by volume and has natural cask imparted color. Now, another whiskey tuber made a complaint about the terminology of natural cask imparted color, and why don't they just use the same terminology as other distilleries? And I tell you the reason why, and this is why you watch my channel, because I'm going to tell you stuff like this. Saying natural cask imparted color is actually a better way of describing it. Why? Because E150, according to Lou Bryson, whiskey writer Lou Bryson, according to Lou Bryson, E150 is derived from barley sugar. Okay, so if you get sugar from barley and then you derive E150 caramel coloring from it, and add that to a whiskey, that's natural color. It doesn't come from the natural process of making whiskey, but that's a natural color derived from barley. So the terminology is a little vague. Probably legally they couldn't call that natural color, but the reality is barley's natural. Getting burnt sugar from it, that's natural. So that would be natural color. So to say natural cask imparted color is more accurate. That's making it really, really clear where you're getting your color from. You're getting it from the cask. You're getting it from the maturation, not getting it from burnt sugar derived from barley. All right. Even if you got the E150 from cane sugar is natural. So I actually like the terminology, which everyone else would use it because I think it's more accurate. Now, this whiskey. I know a lot of people are going to roll their eyes and stick their nose up at the fact that it's only 43% alcohol by volume. And I'm, for the most part, in agreement with you. I like a minimum of 46% alcohol by volume. Although, if you're introducing a whiskey to somebody who's new, maybe you want a 40, maybe you want a 43 to get them started. Or if you're preparing for exam and blind tasting, you need to calibrate your palate. Hey, you got to get used to 40 and 43 so you recognize it when you have it in a blind tasting. But beyond that, one of the things I really, really like about this whiskey, sometimes, you can have it's bourbon cask, sherry cask, and then virgin oak. And there's different ways you can go with the bourbon cask and the sherry cask. You can go heavier on the sherry cask, as we had with the Speyburn that I reviewed before this video. Okay, that was bourbon and sherry cask, but heavier on the sherry cask. You can go heavier on the bourbon cask. You get just a touch of the sherry cask, which I think is what's going on here. Do get more of the bourbon cask than you do on the sherry cask. And the vanilla from the virgin oak is really showing up here. But just that touch of the sherry cask, it gives you a whiff of smoke-like character. So when I first tried it, I was kind of like, well, wait a minute. This isn't peated, is it? Because I was getting a whiff of smoke. And of course, look at the bottle, look at the tube here, look online. Nope, there's no peat. Now smell it, try it, and try it again over several days. Still getting that slight whiff of smoke. Where's it coming from? It's coming from the sherry cask. And I really, really, really dig that. It's just a slight nuance rather than something coming from an actual peated whiskey. By the way, Benriach does a peated whiskey. I reviewed a while back the 10-year-old, which they used to call the Curiositas. Now it's just called the Smoky 10. That's an absolutely fantastic whiskey. That one's also done with virgin oak, which really gives that whiskey a freshness to it. And I talked about how that whiskey is like juicy, it gives out the freshness of the fruit character. It does the same thing here. So first thing I get is just a slight whiff, what comes across as smoke, but it's actually the sherry cask. And it's so subtle, so elegant, that it makes you think and analyze. Because it's not just, say, vanilla or fruit up front or dried black fruit notes of sherry. It's just a whiff of smoke. Glengarry 12-year-old, very similar to that, and that it could kind of fool you into thinking that somehow maybe some peated got in there, but it isn't. It's just a remnant of the sherry cask. Then I get apples and pears, canned peaches, vanilla, baking spices, cinnamon and nutmeg, and a hint of maltiness. On the palate, it's got those baking spices up front, cinnamon and a little bit of nutmeg, the apple and the pear, and just a hint of orange or orange peel. Again, that's coming from the sherry cask. Like the 10-year-old, this is juicy. This is like canned pears, canned apples, that sort of really sugary, sweet concentrated fruit character. It doesn't necessarily have a lot of transition. What you get up front, in the middle, and into the finish, pretty much the same. Mostly you're getting just a light note of baking spices. I wish it had on the palate a whiff of smoke. I don't get that whiff of smoke on the palate. I just get it on the nose. Virgin oak on this plays really, really, really well. The one thing though is if I was tasting it blind, it doesn't come across as a 16-year-old because the freshness of it makes you think it could be younger. Now, obviously, I'm not getting any new make characters of it because it is 16-year-old, but it gives that aliveness and freshness of it. I think this whiskey is blended really, really, really well. Or the casks are married really, 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 really well. By the way, speaking of virgin oak, in my last trip to Scotland, I saw several distilleries that were using virgin oak. And in my third trip to Scotland in July 2023, also saw some virgin oak. I think there are more distilleries using the virgin oak than what they reveal on the bottles or on their website. I think it's being used as an accent to bring some freshness. So maybe as a finishing to sort of counterbalance some of the woodiness of a whiskey and bring in some baking spices. That's what I think the play is here, and I think it's done really, really, really well. I actually like the transitions, however subtle, so there isn't a major difference from the front and the middle to the finish. I like the mouthfeel. It has a nice creamy mouthfeel. It's not as heavy or weighty or as thick or as glossy as a higher ABV whiskey or one that didn't have chill filtering. This doesn't say whether or not it has chill filtering, but as far as I know, all Scotch whiskeys that are under 46, I gotta have some chill filtering with the exception of grain spirits. The Invergordon single grain Scotch whiskeys, they're at 43, but they are non-chill filtered because of the production process and being grain whiskeys, they don't need to. Now, Invergordon also uses malted barley, but they're using column stills rather than pot stills. But again, they're not chill filtered and only at 43, but those are grain whiskeys. As far as I know, from what I've seen, my experience, if it's a pot still malt under 46, you're going to have to do some chill filtering. So what do I think about this whiskey? I really, really like it. I think it's masterfully blended. I think the components work really, really well together. I think it's got a well balance. I like the freshness of it. If you're looking for a summer whiskey, this would work really, really, really well. Something a little bit lighter, a little fresher. I wish it had a little bit more oomph. I wish it had 46% alcohol by volume. The prices on this really, really are all over the map, at least what I could find. Anywhere from $65, $75, all the way up to $130. Now, I'm getting more and more selective and choosy about what I buy. I'm not paying over $100 for a whiskey that's at 43% alcohol by volume. In fact, I've got a huge selection here. I don't need more Scotch whiskey than what I've already got, so I'm going to be getting pickier and pickier about what I buy. If you can get this whiskey, $65 to $75, then I would say pull the trigger. Over $100, I'm going to say nope. There's just way too many whiskeys that are as good or better for under $100. What I'm going to give it in terms of score, I'm going to go solid 88 points. A solid 88 points. I like the whiskey. I'm really, really enjoying it. But I'm not paying over $100 for this whiskey. All right, that's it for this review. If you subscribe to this channel, I want to thank you very much. If you've not yet subscribed, but you like watching my videos, I would greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe. Ring the bell to be notified for when I go live or post a new video. And until next time, Slàinte. Hey, don't forget to subscribe and check out these other whiskey videos.